Hello everyone, today I will talk about the document about leadership and incentive. It was written by these people in 2016 at Norway Economic Department. This document explained the relationship with incentive and leadership for provision of public good. Many people think when the more incentive is given, the more people willing to take leading position. This is recorded on many data, for example, standard economic. However, incentive could affect negative effect. For example, it can crowd out any intrinsic motivation to show leadership. The evidence documented in Banabu and Trolle in 2003 and Fo and Folk 2002 and Frey and Oberholzer 1997. And this incentive also has a social crowding out effect. Like the high incentive to leader can make other people less motivated to contribute goods. Because of envy, or other people think it is unfair, or other people feel disappointment that they are not leaders. So simplify and draw the picture like this way. The incentive can positive effect as a leader for provision of public good, and the incentive has negative way as a leader, negative way as a group for provision of public good. And this terminology is frequently used in documents, so let's look at it. Crowding out effect. The crowding out effect is an economic theory arguing that rising public sector spending drives down or even eliminates private sector spending. In this document, it is similar to backfiring effect. And social crowding out effect. This is coin term in this document, and it's very many used in documents, so it's important to understand this term. This means the effect that the introduction of economic incentive for the leaders crowd out the motivation of other members of the group. So, uh, and before we look at the experiment, I think this question is very important when we understand the document. How much compensation is suitable for leader, moderate or high? And if certain level of compensation to leader is better than others in producing public goods, then why? And does crowding out effect and high compensation exist? I will answer this question in the last page. So let's go to experiment and talk about this. First, participants. We recruit 508 subjects in Norwegian School of Economics for 13 sessions, and they were randomly assigned to group of 4. And procedure. We make 4 treatments consist of 10 rounds of public good games, with random rematching of group after each round. And each round they each receive 20 points that they could either keep or invest in a public good. Each participant's return from the public good was 0.4 times the group total investment in the public good. And the payment given through points at the experiment. For example, 1 point is 1 NOK, and the NOK means Norway currency. And all payments were made in cash immediately after the experiment. And after each round, the participants were informed about their payoff in this round and about their group's total contribution to the public good. And after the experiment, they were asked about some question about what motivated their contribution decision and whether they felt envious or disappointed if they volunteered but were not selected to be leader. And let's talk about 4 treatments. First, base treatment. This is standard public good game, and in this game, all group members simultaneously choose their contribution. So it is a simultaneous game. In contrast to that, other 3 treatments, the participant could volunteer to be the leader. The leader means only contributor in their group. And if more than one group member volunteered, the leader was randomly chosen among the volunteers and asked to state his contribution. The leader contribution was announced to the three other group members before they decided on their contribution, so it is a sequence game. And in a sequence game, the second game is NC treatment games. It means no compensation to leaders. And third game is medium compensation treatment game. It means 4 points compensation to leaders. And last game is high compensation treatment game. It means 12-point compensation to leaders. And also importantly, the leaders in the M treatment and the A treatment could not use the leader compensation to contribute to the public good. Therefore, the payoff structure in the public good game is identical in the four treatment, like this way, where CI is participant I contribution to the public good, DI is a binary term variable indicating whether the participant was a leader, and FT indicates the compensation paid to the leader, which depended on the treatment. We can see the result as follows. In the B treatment, the average contribution is 31.7% of the endowment in the first round, but falls to 9.9% of the endowment in the last round, which is very similar to the pattern observed in other document of public goods games. And the introduction of possibility to volunteer to be the leader without any compensation slightly increased average contribution in most rounds compared to the B treatment, like this way. However, offering a leader compensation significantly increased average contribution relative to the B treatment in all round, like this way and this way. But as you can see, too much higher compensation is detrimental. The average contribution in the A treatment is significantly lower than in the M treatment, but still higher in the NC treatment. So we see two important phenomena in this result. First, the introduction of leader compensation increased contribution to public good. And second, too high compensation can backfire. So let's look at mechanism why this happens. As shown in this graph, in the recruitment of leader, the level of compensation had a positive effect on participants' willingness to be leaders. In left panel, you can see 23% of people volunteer in NC treatments, but 63.4 and 94.4 in the M treatment and in the A treatment. And in the right panel, we only had 64.4% of leaders in the NC treatment, but 97.1% in the M treatment, 99.7% in the H treatment. So regarding this figure, the introduction of compensation can solve the problem in NC case. Then we now turn to a discussion of how leader compensation affected leader behavior. As shown in figure 3, the average leader contribution in the A treatment was significantly lower than in the H treatment. Whereas we do not find a statistically significant difference between the M treatment and the NC treatment or the A treatment and the NC treatment. And also leader compensation may affect both the selection of leader and the motivation of those who become leaders as shown in figure 4. A high compensation attracts more free riders. In the NC treatment, there is very small share of free rider to be leader, 9.7%. But in the A treatment, almost all of them are free riders, 92.6%. So the introduction of leader compensation can change the composition of leader in a negative way. But at the same time, leader compensation may also introduce a reciprocal motive where morally motivated leader may feel a stronger moral obligation to contribute to the public good. So the net effect of leader compensation on leader contribution is hard to predict. And also figure 4 explains why leader contribution is low in high compensation, because it has more free riders. Next, we can see follower behavior. Figure 5 reports the correlation between the leader contribution and the follower contribution, where we observe a positive relationship in all treatments. And in most cases, followers contribute less than leaders, so leaders' contribution is like upper ceiling for the followers. And on average, the follower contributions was 32.6% of the leader's contribution. And a social crowding out effect from leader compensation on follower behavior may affect both the margin and the level of the follower contribution. In particular, leaders in the M treatment contribute with 1.67 points more than the leaders in the A treatment, which using the estimate marginal response of followers translates into a 0.55 points difference in follower contribution. The actual difference in follower contribution between the M treatment and the A treatment, however, is 1.29 points, which means that the marginal response can only account for about 42% of the social crowding out effect from the high leader compensation. This suggests that there is also a social crowding out level effect on followers' contribution. And to check this reason, they conduct short questionnaire after experiment. Let's see figure 6. In the questionnaire, we ask that whether the payment to the leader affect their willingness to contribute to the public good as a follower, whether they were concerned about inequality in the group when making a contribution, whether they felt envy toward the leader, and whether they were disappointed that they themselves were not the leader. And they find that the leader compensation in the A treatment made the followers significantly less motivated to contribute than in the M treatment. It seems like this social crowding out effect is driven by envy and disappointment. Therefore, the questionnaire response suggests that there is a social crowding out effect of high leader compensation in the sense that a high compensation makes the followers less motivated to contribute to the public good. And they want to know whether or not this effect is present at large groups, so conduct a survey in collaboration with Norstad. They surveyed 1,952 respondents from Norstad subject pool, and situation is how much people volunteer with no compensation in free treatments. It is very similar to previous game, but we just skip B treatments. And the result is we observed that a high leader compensation caused a significant drop in the willingness to contribute to the public good, both in comparison with the no compensation treatment and in comparison with the moderate compensation treatments. So this survey also shows social crowding out effect is evident. So finally, answering the question is like this way. And number 1 is moderate compensation is the best option. And number 2, yes, the amount of compensation to leaders can influence on public goods, because high compensation can attract wrong leaders like free riders, and it has social crowding out effect. And also number 3, yes, the high compensation can make crowding out effect both to personal and to group. And the conclusion. The monetary compensation can be used to increase public goods, but also it may create social crowding out effect. And high compensation to leaders is detrimental because it can wrong leaders and create social crowding out effect. And in large-scale survey, social crowding out effect is present in the population at large. So it should be implemented with care. To give moderate compensation to leader is optimal.